In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, I bear witness there's no God but God, and God is the only one who has the right to be worshipped. I also bear witness that Prophet Moses, Prophet Jesus, and Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon them, are the messengers of God, and I seek refuge in Allah from the rejected Satan. So greetings of peace, and thanks for tuning in. May the peace and blessings of Allah be with you. So as you may know, if you've been watching my videos, we prepare for the coming of Imam, Mahdi, as well as the second coming of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon them, also known as the Mashiachs. So we're going to be looking at the law of prayer. I've got a bunch of Quran verses to help us hone in on the law of prayer. Prayer is the most powerful tool of the believer. A great amount of power can be gained from prayer, from connecting with Allah, the unique creator of all that exists. As we know, Imam Mahdi, as well as Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, utilize prayer. We know from the authentic hadiths of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, mentioned that an army will be sent against Imam Mahdi when he swore allegiance at the Kaaba in Mecca. So obviously Imam Mahdi will obviously know the hadiths, I'm sure, and be well aware that an army will be coming upon him at that time. So obviously he'll be seeking protection from the unique creator of all that exists in prayer, and we'll be focusing on to hone our prayers in this video. So if you want to increase your power and increase your closeness with the unique creator of all that exists, this is a great video for you. Also, we know from the authentic hadiths, after Imam Mahdi and Jesus, particularly Jesus, after he defeats the Dajjal, the Antichrist, known in the Christian tradition, after that time, the Gog and Magog, the Yajuj and Majuj, will descend, and there'll be no army on the earth that could stop them. So Jesus will make a supplication, a dua, a prayer to the unique creator of all that exists for protection. We'll be told to hide in the mountains, and there will be some sort of virus or bacteria that will attack the necks of the Yajuj and Majuj, and they'll be destroyed by some sort of plague, according to the authentic hadiths. So there's a great deal of power in prayer for all sorts of things in life, most importantly seeking and receiving the protection and mercy from Allah, the unique creator of all that exists. So those are just some highlights of how prayer can be used in a powerful way, how it gives the believer power to overcome all odds in dire situations, or just to have a good life and have a greater hereafter, inshallah. So we're going to be looking here the law of prayer, and we're going to be going to chapter 2, verse 177, and this is dealing with which position to face when in prayer. That it is not the sole virtue that you turn your faces to the east or the west during prayer, but the true virtue is theirs who believe in Allah, the last day, the angels, the book, and in the prophets, and who give away their wealth and sustenance out of the love for Him. To the near of kin, the orphans, the needy, the wayfarer, and to those who ask in charity and in ransoming the slaves, and who observe the prayer, who go on presenting the Zakat, the compulsory charities, the purifying alms, and those who always fulfill their pledges and agreements when they have made one, and those who are patiently persevering in adversity and distress, and steadfast in times of war. It is these who have proved truthful in their promise and in their faith, and it is these who are strictly guarded against evil. So very important to understand, the direction of prayer is not the sole virtue, but there's a great deal of righteous deeds and good actions that bless a believer and makes his prayers more powerful. So chapter 2, verse 186. And when my servants ask you concerning me, tell them, I am nearby indeed. I answer the prayer of the supplicant when he prays to me, so they should respond to my call and believe in me, that I possess all these attributes so that they may proceed in the right way. So Allah answers the prayer of the supplicant who prays to him. So in chapter 2, verse 238, be watchful over the prayers, especially the middle prayer, the most excellent prayer, which comes in the midst of rush of work and business, and do stand up before Allah, truly obedient and in all humility. So very important to be humble in our prayers, and be watchful over the middle prayer, as that could be the most busiest time of the day. Chapter 2, verse 239, and if you apprehend any danger, then say your prayer on foot or mounted, but when you are secure, then remember Allah on the manner He taught you, and which manner you did not know before. So if you apprehend any danger, then say your prayer while traveling. Chapter 4, verse 43, O you who believe, do not go near prayer when you're not in full possession of your senses, which is referring to wine or alcohol, until you understand all that you say in your prayers, nor occupy yourselves in prayer when you are unclean and under an obligation to have a bath, until you have bathed yourself. But you can do without a bath when you are traveling along your way. If you are taken ill or on a journey, if one of you comes from the privy, the bathroom, or you have had sexual contact with women, then you find no water for bathing or absolution, then you have recourse to pure and clean dust, and wipe your faces and your hands therewith. Indeed, Allah is most benign, great protector. So make sure don't go near prayer when you're not in your full possessions. Like if you're drunk, or it mentions wine, you're not under your normal senses, and make sure that you're properly purified before you pray. Make sure you have proper ablution. That we'll get to that verse soon enough, which talks about ablution. So in chapter 4, verse 86, and whenever you are greeted with a prayer, greet with a better prayer, or at least return the same. Verily, Allah takes account of everything. So whenever you are greeted with a prayer, greet with a better prayer, or the like thereof. So if somebody blesses you, it's a commandment of Allah, the unique creator of all that exists, to bless them back in the like manner, or in some better way. In chapter 4, verse 101, and when you are journeying in the land, there is no blame on you that you shorten your prayer, if you fear that those who disbelieve may give you trouble. Verily, the disbelievers are your open enemies. So there's no blame on you that you shorten your prayer, if you fear that those who disbelieve may give you trouble. So in chapter 4, verse 103, and when you have finished the prayer, then remember Allah standing and sitting and lying on your sides, in short, in all positions and in all conditions. And when you feel secure from danger, then observe prayer in the normal prescribed form. Verily, prayer is enjoined on the believers to be performed at fixed times. So after you have finished your prayer, remember Allah in all positions and conditions. And when you feel secure from danger, then observe the prescribed prayer. So if you don't know how our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, had an ascension journey, we traveled into the heavens and learned the prayer. So there's lots of videos online that you can, if you don't know how Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, pray. There's lots of videos that can teach you on that online. And obviously there's prescribed times to pray, the dawn prayer before the sunrise. Then you got the afternoon prayer, which is when the sun is at its highest peak. Then you got the middle prayer, which is the end day prayer, which is the day, the height of the day is coming to an end. And then you excuse me. Then you have the sunset prayer, that's before the setting of the sun. And then you got the nightly prayer when the sun is completely set. So those are the 5 obligatory prayers that Allah prescribes. And after your prayer, Allah recommends that you remember Allah, either sitting. So after you've done your prayer, you can reflect, feel your connection with Allah within yourself, within your heart. You should feel somewhat of a glow in your heart after you pray. You should feel a connection with Allah. You should feel closer with Allah. And it's important to, as Allah says here, to remember Allah after you pray, sitting, laying down, standing. So in chapter 5, verse 6, O you who believe, when you get up for prayer, perform the ablution so as to wash your faces and your hands up to your elbows, and pass your wet hands over your heads, and wash your feet up to the ankles. So that's the ablution. So it's your hands to your elbows, your face and over your head, and cleaning of your feet up to your ankles. And if you are under an obligation to perform a bath, then wash yourself thoroughly clean by a bath. But if you have been taken ill or on a journey while under the obligation to take a bath, or one of you comes from the privy of the bathroom, or have you had sexual contact with women and you do not find water, then have recourse to clean pure dust and wipe your faces and your hands with it. Allah does not intend to impose any impediments on you, but He intends to purify you internally and externally, and complete His blessings upon you so that you may give Him thanks. So in chapter 7, verse 29, say, My Lord has ordained to be equitable, and to keep your attention upright towards Him always in your every prayer, and to call upon Him exclusively, bearing true faith in Him, as He brought you into being in the first instance, so shall you return to Him again. So in our prayers, we should always have our complete and 100% focus on Allah, the unique creator of all that exists. In chapter 7, verse 31, O children of Adam, look to your elegance by dressing properly at every time and place of worship, and eat and drink, but not of the bounds, for He does not love those who exceed the bounds. So look to your elegance by dressing properly at every time and place of worship. So make sure you're dressed properly, you're in clean clothes. In chapter 7, verse 206, Verily those who are near to your Lord and feel His presence with them do not wax too proud to worship Him, but they glorify Him and prostrate themselves in obedience. So those who are near to your Lord and do not wax too proud to worship and to prostrate Him. So people who experience the closeness with Allah, the unique creator of all that exists, can feel His presence all around, are those who do not feel they don't feel too proud to worship and prostrate to Allah, the unique creator of all that exists. In chapter 17, verses 23 through 24, Your Lord has enjoined you to worship none but Him and to be good to parents. If either or both attain old age while living with you, never say to them fie, or any word expressive of disgust or dislike, nor approach them by your actions, rather address them with kind and respectful words always, and lower to them the wings of submissiveness out of tenderness, treating them with humility and compassion. And say, praying to them, My Lord, have mercy upon them, just as they nourished me and brought me up as a child. So, very important to be good to parents. That's a hallmark of a true believer, is being good to parents. And Allah mentions to say this prayer, My Lord, have mercy upon them, my parents, just as they nourished me and brought me up as a child. So in chapter 17, verses 78 through 79, observe prayer at the declining and paling of the sun unto the complete darkness in diverse hours of the night, and recite the Quran at dawn. Verily, the regular recital of the Quran at dawn is especially acceptable to God and witnessed by the angels, and remain awake for it, the recitation of the Quran and prayer for a part of the night, after having risen from sleep, as a supererogatory service for you. Thus it may be that your Lord will raise you to a laudable, exalted position. So you can, a great way to raise your ranks, not only in this world but in the hereafter, is reciting the Quran at dawn, doing nightly prayers. Those are very powerful things to get close to Allah and increase your ranks, as Allah says He could exalt your position. In chapter 17, verse 80, and say in prayer, my Lord, grant that when I enter, whenever you take me while emigrating or moving from place to place, I enter with truth in every way, and when I depart with truth, and grant me, by your grace, the authoritative help which should sustain me in my activities. So say in prayer, my Lord, grant that when I enter with truth, and when I depart with truth. Chapter 17, verse 110, say, calling upon him by the name of Allah, or call upon him by the name of Al-Rahman, the most gracious. In short, call upon him by whichever so name you like. All beautiful names belong to him, the one God, and utter not your prayers in a loud voice, nor utter them in a low tones, completely concealing it, but seek a middle course. So all beautiful names belong to Allah. If you want to call them Allah, Allah, or God, or the unique creator of all that exists, the Father, Adonai, Hashem. There's all sorts of names. Source is another one that a lot of people use. All these are authentic names of Allah, and it doesn't matter what name you call Allah. It's knowing His attributes is what's really important. And Allah mentions here to have a middle tone when you pray to Allah. Not too loud and not too quiet. So in chapter 20, verses 114, highly exalted is therefore Allah, the true King, and make no haste to recite the Quran and anticipate its early fulfillment of its prophecies before its revelation is completed to you. But say in prayer, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. So another prayer that Allah recommends is to ask Allah to increase me in knowledge. In chapter 20, verse 130, hence put up patiently with what they say and glorify your Lord with his praises before the raising of the sun and before the setting, and glorify him during the hours of the night and at the ends of the day in prayers, that you may attain the real happiness and true bliss. So these are just specific times the believers prescribe to pray, the 5 daily prayers. In chapter 20, verses 132, and bid your people to pray and to be constant and steadfast therein. We do not ask you to provide sustenance for us, but it is we who provide sustenance for you. The good future lies in guarding against evil. So it's very important to encourage one another to pray. One of the reasons why I made this video is to help send Allah's words far and wide across the world. Because I feel it's very beneficial to make these videos. I feel it helps change the world in better ways, and to, as Allah says here, to encourage those to pray, because it is very beneficial. It brings you closer to Allah, the unique creator of all that exists, helps relieve depression. You feel the mercy of Allah, the unique creator of all that exists, and you start gaining greater power in your prayers, in your dua, etc. Chapter 22, verse 77, O you who believe, bow down and prostrate yourself, and worship your Lord, and do good deeds, so that you may attain your goal. So pretty straightforward. Allah loves those who prostrate to Him and worship Him. And this is how the believer achieves the goal of success in this world as well as the next. Chapter 23, verses 97 through 98. And say in prayer, my Lord, I seek refuge in you from the mischief mongerings of the rebellious people. Rather, I also seek refuge in you, my Lord, lest they should even come near me. So I like to use this prayer a lot. My Lord, I seek refuge in you from the mischief mongerings of the rebellious people. Rather, I also seek refuge in you, my Lord, lest they even should come near me. So I don't even want these rebellious people of God, these unjust people, to even come near me. So I always ask for Allah's protection in that. And prayer, doing the regular prayers, also increase protection. So in chapter 24, verse 37, men whom neither trade nor sale distracts from exalting the name of Allah, and from the observance of prayer, from presenting Zakat, the compulsory charities regularly, they dread the day when the hearts and eyes will be in a state of agitation and anguish. So neither trade nor sale should distract the believer from exalting Allah and from the observance of prayer and from presenting Zakat. So obviously we need to have a balanced lifestyle. We need to take care of our families, our wives, our children. We need to observe our prayers. We need to give charity to the needy people. So we need to find a balance with that a true believer will not be fully enveloped in trade and seeking gains and wealth and positions of power, that they don't seek those things, but just attain what they need and to help others in charity and having time and making sure they have time for their prayers and the remembrance of Allah, the unique creator of all that exists. So in chapter 24, verse 56, and believers observe the prayer, keep on presenting the zakat, the purifying dues, and obey the messenger that you may be shown mercy. So by observing prayers, giving charities, the compulsory charities to needy people, and in the cause of Allah, and obey the messengers, it is those who will be shown mercy from Allah. So in chapter 25, verse 77, say to the disbelievers, my Lord will not hold you to be any worth if you do not call on Him in your prayers, seeking His protection. Since you cry lies to the word of God, so you must now encounter a lasting punishment. So Allah will not hold the disbelievers of any worth if you do not call upon Him in prayer. So Allah doesn't see any worth in any soul that does not want to pray to Him, the unique creator of all that exists. So in chapter 30, verse 17 through 18, so glorify Allah when you enter the evening and when you enter the morning. For Him belongs all types of perfect and true praise in the heavens and the earth. And glorify Him in the afternoon and when you enter upon the hour of noon. So these are just referring to the set times of prayer that I mentioned earlier. And Allah says here, for Him belongs all perfect and true praise in the heavens and the earth. Now, I've experienced this myself. There's been a few times where my consciousness has been altered, and it heightens sensation, and I could hear all the trees, all the things, the grass, everything around me. I could hear them. I could hear them praising Allah in a beautiful, it's like a musical praise of Allah. There's no way I can describe it, and every instant was different than the next, praising Him in a new and beautiful way that there's no words to describe. I've never heard sound or music, anything like that in this world, except for those instances. So everything around us is praising Allah. You just can't hear it on a normal basis. So in chapter 33, verse 41 through 42, believers remember Allah with much remembrance and glorify Him morning and evening. Chapter 40, verse 60, and your Lord says, call on me, I will answer your prayers, but those who wax too proud to worship me will surely enter hellfire, humbled and despised. So those who are too proud to worship Allah will be sent in the hellfire, so they can be humbled and purified. And Allah does answer everyone's prayer that is sincere in their prayers. Now, it may not be fulfilled in this world, but it will be rewarded in the hereafter. And like I said, the more things you do that's lawful to Allah, and staying away from the unlawful things that Allah forbids, doing righteous good deeds, giving charity, doing, like I said, righteous good deeds, doing the daily prayers, etc. This all builds, and your prayers will be more answered by living that type of life. So in chapter 42, verse 26, and he responds to the prayers of those who believe and accordingly do good deeds of righteousness, and give them even more than they pray for through his grace and bounty. As for the disbelievers, there awaits them a severe punishment. So, as I mentioned before, Allah responds to the prayers of those who believe and do deeds of righteousness. Chapter 50, verse 39. So bear with patience what they say, and glorify your Lord with his praises, and extol his holiness before the sunrise and sunset. So sometimes it's difficult. Some people really say some annoying things sometimes, and sometimes we react quickly. Maybe we should be more forbearing, and to be patient with what people say, and make sure that we're glorifying Allah instead of maybe responding in a way that maybe is not what's best. So chapter 50, verse 40, and celebrate his praises during the parts of the night and after prescribed prostrations in your prayers. So celebrate his praises during the parts of the night and after prescribed prostrations. So after the 5 daily prayers, Allah recommends nightly prayers. So in chapter, we'll be getting into, I have some nightly prayer Quran verses that are coming up here shortly. So in chapter 62, verses 9 through 10, O you believe, when the call is made for the congressional prayers on Friday, then hasten to extol the name of Allah and leave all business. That is best for you if you only knew. And when the prayer is finished, disperse in the land and seek Allah's grace and bounty, and restart your business, and go on remembering Allah, such that you may achieve an all-around success. So it's important if you have a good mosque in your area that's righteous. It's a commandment of Allah to go there on the Friday congressional prayers. In chapter 72, verse 20, say, I invoke only my Lord and associate no one with him as partners. So this is referring to nightly prayers. Nightly prayers are very, very powerful as well. So in chapter 73, verses 2 to 4, stand up in prayer at night, except for a small portion of it, half of it, or you may, however, reduce it a little, or prolong it a little more, and keep on reciting the Quran distinctly and thoroughly well. Chapter 73, verse 20, surely your Lord knows that you remain standing to say nightly prayers for nearly 2/3 of the night, and sometimes half or 1/3 of it, and so does a party of those of your believing companions who are with you. So he's referring to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and his companions. And Allah determines the night and the day. Sometimes the nights are long, and sometimes they are short, and sometimes the day and the night are equal. He knows that you, the Muslims in general, will not be able to keep up so long a vigil to say night prayers as is easily possible. He knows that some of you may be taken ill, and others may be moving about in the land, seeking Allah's bounty, and still others who may be fighting for the cause of Allah. So Muslims, recite as much of it, the Quran, as is easily possible for you. You shall, however, observe prayer regularly 5 times a day in all events, and go on presenting the Zakat, and set apart a goodly portion of your possessions to give for the sake of Allah. And whatever good you send on before yourselves, you will find it with Allah as the best of things, meriting the greatest reward. And seek protection of Allah. Verily Allah is all protecting, ever merciful. And prostrate yourself before him for a part of the night, and give glory for long hours of the night. So that just describes the nightly prayer. And, some people may find doing the nightly prayers are difficult for a variety of reasons, like Allah gave, maybe you're working, you're traveling, you may be ill. So Allah understands this, and Allah recommends do what you can. Even if you do one of the daily prayers, that's better than none. So do what you can that you find easy, as Allah prescribes. So in chapter 73, verse 6, verily getting up at night for prayers is the most effective means of subduing oneself and the most upright way to acquire firm control over one's action and speech. So getting up for the nightly prayer is the most effective way to acquire firm control over one's action and speech. Chapter 87, verse 1, and extol the holiness of the name of your Lord the Most High. So those are just some of the Quran verses that are within the law of prayer. Prayer is a very beautiful and powerful way to connect with the unique creator of all that exists. Allah grants power as to different individuals in different capacities. Like there's the power of Joseph that Allah mentions in the Quran, the power of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. So Allah can imbue you with powers that you may not have had before by implementing prayer, by doing righteous good deeds, giving charity, etc., striving in the cause of Allah in all sorts of ways. So all these are ways that the believer can accumulate great rewards, not only in this world but in the hereafter, and increase one's power from Allah, the unique creator of all that exists. And for the things that Imam Mahdi, as well as the second coming of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, will have to do, prayer will obviously be an important factor in the preparation of them, but also sustaining a Islamic community and state, for protection, for the mercy of Allah, for the bounties that Allah provides, for the victories, for the success, not only in this world but in the hereafter. Very important that prayer, it will be a foundation of the believer in so many ways, and is the most, I feel, the most powerful tool in the toolbox for the believer. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you take Allah as your shield, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be with you. Thank you. Take care. Peace.